Picture this: a dusty Texas farm in the late 1920s, where a little boy named Alvis Edgar Owens Jr. stomps into his family's modest kitchen, looks his parents square in the eye, and declares, "My name's Buck now." He's not even 5 years old, but he's already claiming a nickname inspired by the family's stubborn old donkey. That bold spark in young Buck's eyes? It's the first glimpse of a man who'd grow up to reshape country music, charm millions on television, and then, somehow, fade from the spotlight he helped create. So what happened to Buck Owens, the rhinestone cowboy who brought twang to the world stage, only to be half forgotten by the industry he transformed? Let's step into his story, a tale of grit, glory, heartbreak, and a legacy that still echoes if you know where to listen. Buck Owens was born on August 12, 1929 in Sherman, Texas, into a world shaped by hardship. The Great Depression was creeping in, and the Dust Bowl was about to choke the life out of the Southern Plains. His parents, Alvis Sr. and Macy, were sharecroppers, scratching out a living on land that seemed to fight them at every turn. Buck's early years were spent picking cotton, his small hands calloused from work most kids today can't imagine. The Owens family wasn't just poor, they were tethered to a life where survival demanded every ounce of strength. Music, though, was their escape. Mexican border radio stations crackled through the air, spilling out cowboy ballads and string band tunes. Buck soaked it all in, his young mind alive with the rhythms of a world beyond the fields. In 1937, when Buck was 8, the family joined the wave of Dust Bowl migrants heading west. Their trailer broke down in Arizona near Phoenix, and that's where they stayed. Mesa, Arizona, wasn't exactly paradise, but it offered a fresh start. Buck, never one for school, found his calling in performance. He'd sing in class to dodge assignments, his voice already carrying a raw, honest twang. By 14, he was co-hosting a local radio show with his buddy Therrell Ray Britton, calling themselves Buck and Brit. They played honky-tonks, those smoky, rough-and-tumble bars where music was as much a fight as it was a song. Buck's guitar became his lifeline, a way to claw out of poverty and into something bigger. By his late teens, Buck was married to Bonnie Campbell, a fellow country singer, and they had 2 sons, Buddy and Michael. The marriage was stormy, and by 1951, Buck, Bonnie, and the boys moved to Bakersfield, California, a gritty oil and farming town along Highway 99. Bakersfield was a magnet for Dust Bowl refugees, a place where juke joints pulsed with life and music. Buck landed a gig at the Blackboard, a legendary honky-tonk where he played lead guitar for Bill Woods' Orange Blossom Playboys. The Blackboard wasn't just a bar. It was a crucible where Buck honed his sound, loud, raw, and electrified, a far cry from the polished strings of Nashville's country scene. He played everything, country, rockabilly, even rumbas, anything to keep the crowd dancing. His Fender Telecaster cranked through a makeshift amplifier, cut through the noise like a blade. In the mid-1950s, Buck's talent caught the eye of Capitol Records, but his early recordings, including a rockabilly single under the pseudonym Corky Jones, didn't make waves. It wasn't until 1959, with Second Fiddle, that he cracked the Billboard country chart. Around this time, he met Don Rich, a young fiddler and guitarist in Tacoma, Washington. Don became Buck's musical soulmate, the harmony to his melody. Together they crafted the Bakersfield Sound, a lean, hard-edged style that married honky-tonk's heart with rock's energy. It was music for working people, not cocktail lounges. In 1963, Act Naturally shot to number 1. One, a deceptively simple song about a man who feels like a born loser. The Beatles, of all people, covered it in 1965, with Ringo Starr's earnest vocals proving Buck's music could cross oceans and genres. The 1960s were Buck's golden era, with his band, the Buckaroos, Don Rich on guitar, Tom Brumley on pedal steel, Willie Cantu on drums, and Doyle Holly on bass, he churned out hit after hit. Songs like Love's Gonna Live Here, which held the #1 spot. One spot for 16 weeks, Together Again, with its aching steel guitar, and I've Got a Tiger by the Tail, a rollicking anthem of being caught in life's whirlwind, defined an era. Buck's music was direct, unpretentious, and packed with feeling. He sang about love, loss, and the grind of everyday life. His voice a mix of swagger and vulnerability. His red, white, and blue guitar and rhinestone suits made him a visual icon, a rhinestone cowboy before the term existed. Buck wasn't just a performer, he was a visionary. In 1965, he founded Buck Owens Enterprises, managed by his sister Dorothy, and the booking agency OMAC Artists Corporation. He bought radio stations starting with KUZZAM in Bakersfield, and later expanded to Phoenix. His publishing company, Blue Book Music, cashed in on his songs and those of rising star Merle Haggard, who'd once played bass in Buck's band. Buck's business savvy set him apart in an industry that often chewed up artists. He fought Capitol Records for control of his master recordings, a rare win that secured his financial future. In 1966, Buck and the Buckaroos played Carnegie Hall, a bold statement that country music belonged on the world's biggest stages. The live album from that show crackled with energy, proof that Buck's sound could captivate even New York's elite. A year later, they toured Japan, recording Buck Owens and his Buckaroos in Japan, one of the first country albums cut overseas. In 1968, they performed at the White House for President Lyndon B. Johnson, a nod to Buck's growing influence. By 1969, Buck was a household name, his records selling millions. But fame came with a choice that would change everything. That year, producers Frank Pepiat and John Aylesworth approached Buck with an offer to co-host a new TV show, Hee Haw. It was a risky move, a mix of country music and cornball comedy, full of hay bales, overalls, and hokey sketches. Buck, already a star of his syndicated Buck Owens Ranch show, saw the potential to reach a wider audience. He signed on, bringing the Buckaroos and his signature twang to CBS. Hee Haw was an instant hit, blending music with humor that poked fun at rural life without malice. Buck, alongside co-host Roy Clark, became the face of pickin' and grinnin', a phrase that entered the cultural lexicon. The show's cornfield skits and knock-knock gags made Buck a TV star, but they also cast him as a lovable rube, a role that would haunt him. Behind the scenes, Buck's life was anything but simple. His marriage to Bonnie had ended in divorce, and subsequent marriages to Phyllis Buford and Jennifer Smith also unraveled. He was a devoted father to his 3 sons, Buddy, Michael, and Johnny, but his relentless drive often left little room for personal connection. In Eileen Sisk's 2010 biography, Buck Owens, the biography, former associates describe him as a shrewd, sometimes ruthless businessman. He could be charming one moment, cold the next, his temper flaring when deals went south. Yet those close to him, like longtime keyboardist Jim Shaw, saw a man who never forgot his roots, who'd give fans his all even when exhaustion set in. One rarely told story from this period reveals Buck's heart in a way charts and TV ratings can't. In 1970, during a Hee Haw taping, Buck performed Crying Time with guest star Ray Charles. The song, written by Buck, was a hit for both men, but their duet was electric, a moment where 2 legends, one country, one soul, met as equals. Off stage, Buck confided to a crew member that singing with Ray was one of the proudest moments of his life. "I wrote that song from a broke place," he said, "and Ray made it mean something new." That vulnerability, rarely shared, showed the depth beneath Buck's flashy exterior. The early 1970s brought more hits like Tall Dark Stranger and Who's Gonna Mow Your Grass, but Hee Haw began to overshadow Buck's music. Capitol flooded the market with albums, some reissues, diluting his brand. Buck also experimented with early music videos for songs like Big in Vegas and I Wouldn't Live in New York City, shot on 35mm film. These were pioneering efforts, but with no platform like MTV, they went largely unseen. By 1971, Buck signed his final Capitol contract, securing ownership of his recordings, a coup that underscored his foresight. Then in 1974, tragedy struck. Don Rich, Buck's best friend and musical partner, died in a motorcycle accident at 32. The loss shattered Buck. Don's harmonies and guitar riffs were the backbone of the Bakersfield Sound, and his death left a void no one could fill. Buck's performances lost their spark, and his recordings for Warner Brothers in the late 1970s felt flat. Only one song, a 1979 duet with Emmylou Harris called Play Together Again Again, cracked the top 20. Buck later admitted he lost the fire after Don's death, his grief compounded by the feeling that Hee Haw had typecast him as a clown. By 1980, Buck stepped back from recording, focusing on his business empire. He owned radio stations, real estate, and a stake in the country music network Real Country. Hee Haw kept him in the public eye, but he grew frustrated with the show's caricature of country life. In 1986, he left, later saying it ruined my credibility as a musician. The music industry, now chasing slicker sounds, seemed to move on without him. Buck retreated to Bakersfield, where he opened the Crystal Palace in 1996, a restaurant and venue that became a shrine to his legacy. He performed there weekly, his rhinestone suit still dazzling, but to many he was a relic of a bygone era. A glimmer of redemption came in 1988, when Dwight Yoakam, a young artist steeped in the Bakersfield Sound, invited Buck to duet on Streets of Bakersfield. The song, which Buck had recorded in 1972, hit number 1, his first chart topper in 16 years. Yoakam, who called Buck his hero, helped reintroduce him to a new generation. They performed together on a CBS special, and Buck's joy was palpable. He followed with 2 albums, Hot Dog and Act Naturally, the latter, featuring a duet with Ringo Starr. But the comeback was brief. Health issues, including throat cancer in 1993 and a minor stroke in 2004, slowed him down. One untold story from Buck's later years shows his unbreakable spirit. In May 2004, during a Crystal Palace performance, Buck joined George Strait and Alan Jackson for an impromptu rendition of Folsom Prison Blues. Despite his frail health, Buck's voice rang out, and the crowd roared. A fan in the audience, who'd driven from Nevada, later wrote in a letter to the Palace, "I saw a man who'd been through hell and back singing like it was his last night on earth. I'll never forget it." That fan wasn't alone. Buck's shows were packed with loyal devotees who saw him not as a TV caricature, but as a pioneer. Buck's personal life, though, remained turbulent. His relationships with women, including a long-term romance with Hee Haw star Lisa Todd, never brought lasting stability. Sisk's biography paints a complex picture. A man who craved love but struggled to sustain it, whose charm masked a restless soul. Some former buckaroos accused him of being domineering, even manipulative in business dealings. Others, like Tom Brumley, defended him, saying Buck's toughness came from a life of scraping by. The truth likely lies in the gray. Buck was neither saint nor villain, but a man shaped by a brutal upbringing and relentless ambition. The controversies around Buck often center on his legacy. Some argue Hee Haw cheapened his artistry, turning a musical innovator into a punchline. Others say the show brought country music to millions who'd never heard it, making Buck a cultural ambassador. His business practices also sparked debate. While he empowered artists like Merle Haggard through Blue Book music, some felt he prioritized profit over loyalty. Even his Bakersfield Sound divides historians. Was it a rebellion against Nashville's Polish, or simply a regional flavor that caught on? These questions linger, reminding us that history rarely settles on one truth. Buck Owens died on March 25, 2006, in his sleep, hours after a final performance at the Crystal Palace. He'd almost canceled that night, feeling unwell after his favorite chicken fried steak dinner. But when fans from Oregon told him they'd driven hundreds of miles to see him, Buck took the stage, saying, "If somebody's come all that way, I'm going to give it my best shot." His last song was Big in Vegas, a bittersweet nod to dreams just out of reach. He was 76, and though he'd battled cancer, pneumonia, and a stroke, his heart gave out quietly, as if he'd finally laid down his burdens. Buck's significance stretches far beyond his 21st number. One hits, or his Hee Haw fame. He gave voice to the working class, to people who felt invisible in a world of glitz. The Bakersfield Sound, with its raw honesty, paved the way for country rock and influenced artists from Graham Parsons to Brad Paisley. His business acumen, owning his masters, building a media empire, set a template for artist empowerment. Yet his story resonates most because it's so human. Buck was a man of contradictions. A sharecropper's son who became a millionaire. A TV star who longed for respect. A father and friend who sometimes pushed people away. His life reminds us that success doesn't erase pain, and legacy is as much about what you endure as what you achieve. As we look back, Buck's story offers lessons that hit deep. It's about resilience, how a boy from the cotton fields built a sound that shook the world. It's about sacrifice, the personal toll of chasing a dream. And it's about redemption, the way Buck reclaimed his music through younger artists like Dwight Yoakam, proving his voice still mattered. His Crystal Palace stands today a testament to a man who never stopped believing in his roots. So why does Buck Owens matter now? Because in an age of polished pop and fleeting fame, his music, gritty, real, and unapologetic, reminds us what it means to tell a story that lasts. And that's all for today's video. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time.